My name is Pastor Antoinette Roberts. I am from New York City, United States. I live currently here in Georgia, near Atlanta, Georgia. Um, I am the founder and the owner of the J. Holman House. The J. Holman House is a nonprofit that takes care and supports suicide loss survivors. I am a suicide loss survivor. I have lost
Mm.
my son Jermaine Holman, who J. Holman House is named after, to suicide in 2004. I am an advocate and for suicide survivors, and I am very, very passionate about speaking about suicide awareness and prevention.
Yeah. And the reason that we are doing this actually is because suicide is a topic that not many people want to talk about. Not many people want to come out like you are doing and talking about suicide, especially of their loved ones. So I commend you for what you are doing, and I believe that together we can create awareness on this and open the space so that people can be able to speak freely about it.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. So you say your son who committed suicide.
Yes, my son died from suicide. He was 18 years old. His birthday was in November. He died December 20th, 2004. He had just turned 18. Yeah, and he had been going through a series of things in his life, and I guess things became too hard. So he just decided to end his life. It was a tragedy to my family. It was a shock to my family. It has taken me 20 years. It's been 20 years now to really come in agreement with what God has said about it and the assignment that I have to do. It's time to have the conversation. It's been time, but it's really time now to have the conversation.
I know. I'm very sorry about that tragedy. It's a real tragedy. Now, what were the issues that your son was going through that uh, made him do this, that
Well,
drove him to do this?
hindsight is 2020 now, right? When he was going through the things he was going through, I was very unaware and very ignorant to what I was looking at, and just caught up into my own healing, into my own survival. And so raising my son back then, I'm a nurse. I worked really hard. We lived in a very not, I wouldn't say tough neighborhood, but it wasn't the richest of the richest neighborhood. I was a single mother. I had three children at the time, and my son was the oldest. He had a lot of responsibility because I was working. You know how sometimes we leave our oldest child to have a lot of responsibility. But I've come to find out that my son was hurting. He was hurting really badly because he had a hole in a space where his dad's supposed to be. My son really, really, he was one of those sons that just really desired to have a relationship with his father. His father rejected him several times. And so that was an issue, but I didn't know it was an issue then. And then at the same time, I was going through my own things in my own life, trying to figure things out and being a single mom and all the things that comes with that. I didn't have the knowledge then to look back and see that my children were okay. I just was trying to make sure that I was okay. And so my son was not okay. My children were not okay. But my son, he took his life. Um, he wasn't okay.
So there is no time that your son drew your attention to this feeling of missing a father.
Well, this is the thing I would say. And a lot of people look at me when I'm strange when I say this. My son was in the streets. He was in a gang called the Bloods
Oh,
in New York. He joined the gang, and at the time, I was so angry with him. I just thought he was just so disrespectful and so
yeah.
disobedient. and just coming in my house and just doing what he wanted to do. But I had no understanding of why he would even join the gang, why he would even want to do the things he was doing. I just didn't understand. I didn't have the, like I said, the knowledge of it, of what was I seeing. So I was seeing signs, I was seeing red flags, but I didn't know that that's what they were. I just thought he was just being a disrespectful child. So at the time when my son passed, I tell people I did not like my son. I loved him, but I did not like
Yeah.
him, you know? And so I didn't take the time really, not and unknowingly, to see that he was hurting, that it was hurt that was the root to all the behavior that was showing up, if that makes
Mm.
sense,
Yeah, it
you know?
does make sense. And even as we are continuing, maybe we pause a little and I ask you to talk to parents. What are the things that parents should be looking at in the children? What could be the red flags which you missed because you are also going through your issues?
Yes. So some of the red
Yeah,
flags that I miss that I can tell parents about now today is the separation between you and your children, right? Sometimes, especially young men, and this is why I created this space that I created, is that already society tells young men from boys not to cry, then they're not to
yeah.
feel, they're not to experience hurt. And so a lot of times they hurt comes up and it shows up as anger, it shows up as behaviors that are not desirable for society because they're hurting and they don't have a space to say, listen, I'm hurting, I need something. And so
Mm,
I tell parents to really take the time, even when you're going through your own healing, your own experiences, to make sure that your children are all right. Because just imagine you are going through stuff and you're an adult, you're trying to figure out how to, pay your bills and, figure things out as an adult, and your children are right there with you. Imagine with their little brains undeveloped, going through the same thing you're experiencing. It's hard for you. So imagine
mm,
it being hard for your children. And I think a lot of times the major thing that I teach parents is to give yourself grace, because what will happen is that grace, that guilt and shame will come in because it's a whole lot of shoulda, coulda, wouldas. But recognize that there's an issue, and then have those family talks where you just check in on one another, making sure that everybody is, I won't say okay, but just able to go through whatever it is that you're going through as a family unit. I think something that happens here in the United States and probably across the world is that the family unit as we know it has been dissolved, right?
yes,
We're working
exactly.
hard, the children are
Yeah.
going to school, they're just, it's that whole time, even eating dinner at the table used to be a thing
Mm,
when I was growing up. It's not, some of us don't even have a thing. The children eat wherever. We don't even
yeah.
talk at the dinner table. you know and then
Mm,
there's
yeah.
another thing that I think that we should have really grace with, is allowing our children to have an opinion and talk about what they're going through. I was raised that
Right.
children are to be seen and not heard. I raised my
Right.
children that way. You are to be seen and not heard. Do what I say, and that's it. And so children don't do what you say, they do what you do,
Mm,
right?
yeah.
So,
Yes. Exactly.
I just think allowing a space for your children to express, not disrespectfully, but as an individual, what is really happening. Because I think a lot of times as parents, we don't know to listen.
Mm, yeah. Now, at what point did you notice the disconnect, the behavior in your child that you did not like?
At the age of 14, I would say, about the age of 14, my son came home and he was beat up. He was going into high school, and he came home and he was beat up. He was beat up really badly. And, I know the streets. And so I said to him, what happened? And he said, oh, I got jumped by some friends. But I had, you have to listen to your gut, right? It's called discernment. So
Yeah.
my gut said gang. So I just began to watch him. I began to see the paraphernalia, and I said to him, "Are you in a gang?" He said no. Um, but he was. And so what happened was I began to open up my home to him and his friends. I didn't want my
Yeah.
son in the street, and I worked hard. So I used to cook dinner, and I used to had, and my children had the best of everything, every PlayStation back then, every game system. And him and his friends would be in my house playing for hours. I realized
Mm.
that they were just broken young men with nowhere to go.
Yeah.
The scary thing
Mm.
about it is that some of his friends would spend nights at my house, weeks at my house, and no one would check for them.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, it's like,
And
how
yet they
can you
had
be here?
parents. Yeah.
Yes, they have parents. And so when I would see their parents in the neighborhood, I said, well, you know your son been at my house. Oh, I know you. You okay. How do you know me? How do you know that I'm okay? You don't know what I'm doing. But they just
Yeah.
felt out they're out the way. They're not bothering me. So, this is what was going on. But what I
Yeah.
come to find out afterwards, my son had dropped out of high school. He decided that he wanted to take his GED. I was very upset about that because again, pride, right? And
Yeah.
honor, and you honor your family, and how dare you do such a thing. Um and then I come to find out that when he transitioned, that he had left a legacy, a whole legacy behind. I was living
Mm.
under the roof with someone that I did not even know. My son had
Yeah.
touched so many people's lives. He had more than
Mm.
600 youth at his funeral. He had applied for Temple University, which is a college here. He wanted to be a journalist. His acceptance letter
Mm.
came in the mail, and they said that he was supposed to murder someone so that he can come out of the gang. That's the story that I was told. So instead of him
Gosh.
doing so, he killed himself. But again,
Yeah.
hindsight is 2020, because I'm thinking, here's this horrible child. I can't stand him. He's not listening. He's coming in my house. He's doing all these things, and now he's gone, and now all these stories are coming to me.
Yeah.
And I'm sitting there
Mm.
like, are you talking about my son, Jermaine? Jermaine?
Yeah.
And come to find out, I say this too: separation from your children will make you live under the roof with somebody that you don't even know.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah. So, how about the siblings?
Siblings,
How,
yes.
yes, how are they behaving at that point?
Well, at that point, my son was 18, his sister was 12. They were very close. My daughter's 32 now, and she's still struggling with her brother being gone.
Mm.
His baby brother, Khalil, his name is Khalil, he was 3. He's the one that found him. He was in the hanging in the closet. He's the one that found him. So,
Mm.
my son is 23 now. He doesn't really talk about his brother. He doesn't really speak about him. My daughter does. She has her own issues with her mental health as well. She told me one day that if he had not done so, she would have done it. She would have killed
She
herself. She
said
told me
so?
that one day. She said so.
Yeah.
And she said that even after Jermaine was gone, she had considered, it, but she saw the amount of pain that it caused. So that's what caused her to live. And I have to tell you
Yeah.
something. It was then that I had to really have the conversation with her and free her, because I don't want you to live because you don't want to cause pain. I
Yeah.
want you to live
Yeah.
because that's what you need to do. You need to live.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah. So did you then have some therapy for the siblings, for your
I
daughter and
do.
son?
I do.
You
Well,
do.
my son doesn't go to therapy. My son, he's very God fearing, and everything is God is in control. God is in control. God is in control. He doesn't really
Mm.
talk about things until things get really massive, and then he comes to talk about whatever he's going through. But my daughter, she does go to therapy. And actually, my daughter told me just recently as well that I was a trigger for her. And I had said, it was really like, why would you say that? But perfection. Her perception was that I expected her to be perfect. And I said to her,
Ah,
her name is Ty. Her name is Tyasia. I said, Tyasia, I never said that to you. But she said, Mommy, it was how you presented yourself and your behavior. She said, I learned at 12 years old how to be perfect. And I said, "What do you mean?" She said, "When I did well in school, you praised me. You gave, and you know, and I got your attention. But when I didn't do well, or I did something that you thought was a failure, you didn't say anything. And so I
I,
always wanted your approval. So I made sure that I was perfect. My daughter's 32 years old, and she's still trying to be perfect for
at
a
this point,
perception.
again, I think we take a pause so that you speak to a parent regarding that. Expecting your children to be perfect. Is it right, really?
Yes, and this is the thing. Sometimes we put there's two sides to that story, right? Two flips of the coin.
Yeah.
Sometimes we put perfection on our children because of our own failures, so we live vicariously through our children, um, and we just want them to be outstanding citizens in the society. But then other times there's a perception of what they think you should be. And that was a conversation my daughter had because she was like, "Mom, I think you're super amazing. So I have a hard time living up to your standard." But I said, "What standard are you talking about?" And she was like, "It's
Yeah.
not that you said it, it's that you said it without saying it." And I'm like, okay, but then I had to remind her, do you not realize that the woman I am today is because of what we went through back then?
Mm.
Do you not
Yeah.
realize that? And so you have to
Mm.
go through your own things. You have to have your own crises. You have to have your own failures. You have to create your own story. I don't expect my children to be perfect, and we should not as well either, because we're not
Mm.
perfect, people. The Bible talks about perfection, but that talks about maturity in the spirit, not being a
Yeah.
perfect person here on earth. And so
Yeah.
a lot of times I think that as parents, we want our children to be perfect, not because of anything else, but because of embarrassment. We set a status
Mm.
quo that we don't want to be embarrassed. So it's our selfishness that makes our children want to be perfect.
Mm. Yeah. True. Now, how did you find out that this your son had committed suicide? You said that it's the brother who found him. What were the reactions in your household?
Um, I'm the strong one in my family. I'm that one that
Yeah.
everyone calls. I'm that one that was fighting for everyone. I'm the second oldest out of five girls.
Yeah.
So I didn't cry. When they put my
You
son in the
didn't?
ground, I didn't cry. I walked around for 15 years with a lump in my throat because I wanted to
Yeah.
cry, but I was raised that you put your big girl panties on, you show up, you smile for the world, you have a facade, and you don't cry. And I was also raised in a space where you don't talk about things even in your own home. So what happened is that no one said my son's name. They didn't know what to say to me, so it got really quiet. I'm strong, so I'm strong, and I do it like this because
Yes.
I appeared to be strong. They didn't know that
Yeah.
I was crying and that I was hollering in the shower. They didn't know that I was balled up in the corner hollering at God. I was very angry with God at one point. They didn't know that I was experiencing what I was experiencing, that I was showing up in life not whole. They didn't understand and know any of those things. It wasn't until I stopped working as a nurse. I had a nervous breakdown
Oh,
and I
you
went
did.
to I did. I
Yeah.
stopped working as a nurse, and when I stopped working, I started crying for like 2 weeks straight. I couldn't stop crying. And then I went to a therapist and she said, "You are extremely depressed, clinically depressed."
Oh,
Severe depression. And I looked at her and I said, "Miss, I'm not depressed. I eat, I take showers. Like, I'm not depressed." And she's like, "Yes, you are." She was like, "You work
yeah.
16 hours a day, 7 days a week. Look at your weight.
Yeah.
Look how you show up. You are depressed."
Yeah.
That was really
What
hard.
triggered what triggered that cry when you joined nursing? Why did it come at that particular time?
What triggered the cry is that one day I was taking care of a young man. I had a patient who was 18 years old, the same age as my son. He had jumped off a roof and he survived. His mother was a nurse as well. He had a trach in his throat. He had a feeding tube. He was on a ventilator. And his mother would come in every single day and wash him up and take care of him. And I watched this woman go from like a size 18 to like a size 3. She just dwindled in front of me. And one day I hear the Spirit of God said, I am gracious. This would have been your portion.
Yeah.
And I'm looking like, okay, what I had to realize this too is that people kept telling me that my son was in hell. He died. He
Mm.
killed himself. He's in hell. But God had to
People
explain to me,
told you
no one
that?
takes it. People were telling me that, yes. Because people actually say that to people, and I struggled with that for a long time. But God had to really get with me and let me know that nothing no one does surprises me. I knew what he was going to do. And he also
Yeah.
let me know that your son did not die. He transitioned. And your son transitioned so that other sons could live. I had no
Yeah.
idea what that meant, but I understand
Mm.
now because the space that we have created is that so other young men can live, that this won't happen to them.
Yeah.
If my
Yeah.
son never transitioned, I would not have built the J. Holman house. Would not be
No.
having this conversation because guess what?
Exactly.
In my family,
Exactly.
no one talks about suicide because what they said to me is black people don't die from suicide. You sure he killed himself? Black people don't do that. That's what they said.
Yeah. So then, how about the sister and the brother? Did they? Okay, your son is the one who discovered the brother.
Yes.
How did he react at that time?
He was 3, so he didn't
Did
really
he even
know.
know that the brother had died of suicide?
He didn't know. What he did was that he was 3 years old, just like barely talking, and he came and told his sister, "Brothers in the closet." That's what he said to her, because my son hung himself in the closet, and
Yeah.
she said she was playing a video game, and then he came back and said, "Brother sleeping in the closet." So she got up, and when she got up, she
Yeah.
found him hanging in the closet.
Mm.
So
Mm.
my daughter also carries that guilt that if I would have gotten up, I would have been able to help him. But I had to. It's we had to just peel through those layers. That it is what it is,
Yeah.
and it's already done. With and what I let people know, and and the message I want to convey today to suicide loss survivors is that
Yeah.
shame and guilt are cousins. They ride in the car together,
Mm.
right? And it's
Yeah.
because of shame and guilt that we don't even talk about these things. Because the truth is, some of us have thoughts of suicide. Some of us have ideations of suicide, and we're holding
Mm.
big positions. We're preaching the gospel. We're raising
Mm.
children. We're doing these
Mm.
things, but we would never let anybody know that I'm struggling. And so when someone unalives themselves and kills themselves, we are so shocked. Oh my goodness, they looked okay. Everything looked okay. What happened? Well, everything was not okay. We have to give people a space to say, I am not okay. But you don't stay not
Yes.
okay.
Yeah, exactly. We've got to give people a space to say, I'm not okay. Because it
Yes,
is okay not to be okay.
that's right. Just don't stay that
Yeah.
way, you
Mm,
know?
yeah.
Because there's a saying here in the United States, it says life be lifing. What I
Yeah.
realize in the work that I do is that you don't necessarily have to have a mental health issue to want to die from suicide. It can be something
Mm,
in your life that happens like that, that is so heavy, that is so
yeah.
crushing that you just don't want to deal with it. So you take a permanent solution for a temporary problem. Because what we have to realize too is not that people that die from suicide are not always depressed, are not always schizophrenic, are not always have a diagnosis. Life just be happening and they don't know how to tolerate and have the tools to go through life and handle what's happening.